Now, this study is going viral on Twitter, and I don't know why, because it was done last year. However, I think it may still apply. And it's an interesting study. It says that the UK is officially the world's second most miserable country. And initially, I thought that it's an exaggeration. You know, it's one of those studies that just go on the street and it asks random people, like from a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about Britain? And so people that are dissatisfied, they would say like a 2 or a 3, you know, especially if it happens before an election or before a politically charged event, like people are willing to exaggerate. But it turns out, no, like the study is a little bit more complex. Like there were a series of questionnaires that try to ask the question and to frame it in a way that you would get a more honest answer. And so it's interesting that you get to see the country being the world's second most miserable, because you wouldn't expect that from Britain, right? And I think the main reason for it is the fact that most people remember the lifestyle that their grandparents had. So, like, if you're talking to your grandparent and you're asking him, like, how were things back in the day, they would definitely describe a world that was much, much better to live in than the current Britain today. And so it's interesting that this article, and I looked through others, like trying to explain why Britain is close to Uzbekistan when it comes to people's happiness and how they feel about their country. And all the articles are pretty much like trying to avoid any of the main issues. Like they're just talking about superficial stuff. It's like, oh, you know, if people talk about the weather all the time, it makes them gloomy. Oh, it's because more money means more problems, right? Like just completely avoiding talking about any current events that would explain the main reason of why people feel miserable. And so I wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, if you look at politics, for instance, which may contribute to the study because this was taken around the time of the previous elections, like most people feel unrepresented. I talked to people from Britain, both on the left and the right, and they all tell me that they genuinely and unironically feel unrepresented when it comes to politics. They view that there isn't much difference between Labour and Tories, which are the two main parties over there. And so, like, regardless for who you vote, it's usually the civil servants that are running the nation, which are bureaucrats. They don't get to be held responsible for their decisions. And so people feel disenfranchised. And it's just like one of the issues. The other issues is that I definitely consider Britain to be the clown car of world politics. I mean, if you're looking at what they are doing, let's say they pass hate speech laws, which are quite controversial if you think about it, because like their grandparents didn't have to be worried that they say a joke or they make a meme and then they get placed in the billy wagon. But it is what it is, right? Like now we have hate speech laws, and certain things that you post on the internet from the privacy of your own bedroom can get you arrested. But then you have like the Prime Minister in Scotland, Mr. Yusuf, which doesn't seem to like white people. Like he's got this famous speech where he is bothered that in Scotland there's too many white people, especially too many white people in charge. And apparently that type of rhetoric, that's not hate speech. But if you have like a teenage girl that sings a rap limerick and posts it on Facebook, which contains the N-word, well, that is hate speech, and then she does get prosecuted. And so it's no wonder that people say, well, we're getting close to a two-tier justice system. It's because it does seem that if you're well-connected, if you're part of the establishment, if you're with the elites, then the laws, well, they bend. Like you can have the type of speech that other peoples wish they had. But if you're just a random person, if you're just a random bloke, well, all of a sudden the laws don't apply to you. And this is why I'm saying it's like the clown car of world politics. I mean, they have this picture of a pug, right? Like the first comedian that got in legal trouble and even convicted was in Scotland because he taught the dog to do a Nazi salute, right? So again, like Britain, the country that dominated the Nazis, the countries that helped fight Europe against the Nazis, we're being constantly told that the danger of the Nazis coming back is from Britain. Again, the clown car of world politics, right? So, like, people aren't even allowed to show pride in their nation because they're constantly dominated. It's like, well, if you allow you guys to speak freely, like, you may become Germany. And so, this is like one of the things that people have to deal with, is the lack of representation. I don't really know how the British democratic system works, but they have like some really bizarre rules over there where, despite the fact that the Lib Dems got fewer votes than, let's say, Nigel Farage's party, they got more seats than Nigel Farage's party. So again, another issue that's there. And then you look at what the politicians are doing, and they seem to be fucking with the farmers lately, like passing all sorts of taxations, regulations that are messing with the farmers. They seem to have an environmentalist cult, to the point where I actually got a culture shock when I went to London. Like, I was absolutely baffled by this worship of environmentalism wherever I went, to the point where even when I went to a steakhouse, a place that's supposed to serve you meat, like the first thing on the steakhouse, it was the vegan menu. You then walk around and you find a place that's under construction, and there's a big billboard talking about how their construction company is big on the environment. And then you see a cab that just walks past you, and the cab is like, oh, well, our cabs are environmental friendly. And you go to the mall and you notice that one of the electric stairwells, they're shut down, and it says, oh, it's to protect the environment. And then you go to the hotel and it says, make sure you don't leave your phone charging while you're gone, because we're trying to protect the environment. Like it's just like a fucking cult. You know, it's one thing to be like a little bit more environmentally aware, but in Britain it's everywhere, right? And what is the environmentalist cult? Well, it's the idea that you need to empower politicians, you need to empower the government to tax you more, to limit what you can do more, you know, to take away your gas car, to put like various cameras on the road to see if your car isn't a little bit outdated, so that they can tax you, so that you have to now buy a car that has a computer attached to it. You know, like all this shit, and it has to be in perpetuity. Like it doesn't really say when these restrictions are going to be lifted up. I even see pictures saying that people should have less kids. And so, you know, it becomes the question. It's like, all right, so for who are we saving the planet for? Like, if we're not saving it for our children, and we're trying to just lower our living conditions in order to protect us from the environment, like for whom are we saving it for? For the animals? So, like, that's another thing, right? But like, I think the main issue isn't necessarily the environmentalist cults, and isn't necessarily like the fact that certain politicians seem to be able to break the law while other people can't. Again, like, you have these vague laws. It's like hate speech, and it's like, how do you punish a human emotion? Like how does a judge rule like if you genuinely felt emotional hatred within that moment or not? But even those, that's not the problem. You look at home ownership. Like, home ownership is a huge issue. Like, here in Eastern Europe, home ownership, especially in my country, it's around 90%. Right? Like how many British people get to have homes? And when you think about that, their birth rates are plummeting. It has to beg the question. It's like, well, hold on a little bit. Like, if there were more people in the previous generation than this one, like, where are the homes? What's happening with the homes? Well, the government doesn't seem to tackle that question. Instead, it tackles the question, like, how do we fuck with the farmers more? How do we tax them more? How do we put an income tax on them? So you got those issues. Now, it's not even about the money, right? Because, like, some countries, they have less cash than others, and the happiness index is a lot higher. And I think this is because, like, people aren't that greedy. Like, a lot of people are happy to live with less, especially if they know that their grandparents or their parents also live with less. Like, that's fine. You know, like, a lot of people in Eastern Europe are like that. But the issue is, like, when you're worried that your kid may not be able to have a job. I think that creates unhappiness, right? Like, if you have a kid and you're already thinking, okay, but like, when he grows up, what if he actually manages to go to a university? What if he manages to get good grades, but he just can't get a job anywhere because, like, they're not hiring? I think that creates a lot of unhappiness, doesn't it? Like, that creates a lot of societal angst. And then, of course, you know, like, this is after COVID, where the British government showed just how tyrannical it can be with tier 17 lockdowns and shit. Like, other countries went through COVID as well, and they didn't have to install the same draconic measures that you saw in the UK. Because, like, if you compare what happened during COVID between various world governments and what restrictions they added compared to other nations, you get to see, like, which countries are actually closer to fascism versus which countries are actually more close to democracy and freedom. I think, like, yeah, like, I think COVID was an excellent indicator of seeing what the government does when it's drunk with power, when it can literally get away with anything. And finally, yeah, I mean, it was in 2024. People are worried about the conflict in Ukraine, and Keir Starmer doesn't seem to be a pacifist. Right? He does seem to be fanning the flames a little bit, joining hands with France. And so I think that British people, yeah, they're worried. I mean, if all of these problems already exist, and then there is also the prospect of having to join the military in order to defend the country that people may not feel that it represents them, that also causes societal angst, doesn't it? And so I think that these are the issues that make UK the most miserable country. But again, like, these are my assessments from afar, right? So I don't live in the UK. I just visited and I have friends. If you disagree with me, why do you think that the actual problem exists, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but then you need to come up with different explanations to explain away why the UK is ranked as the world's second most miserable country, especially because I believe it. Like, I see British people online, they don't seem very happy compared to other nationalities. So why do you think that is? And let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys there. Take care.